Oh, wow. Okay. So it's showing live here. We don't know when we lost you guys. We're sorry. Technical difficulties.
YouTube is hard.
Yeah. I'm kind of wondering if we'll have to like take this down and then just upload the whole thing so that people can have some
Mm-hmm.
context, or should we
Mm-hmm.
start over? Continue.
Mm.
That's what I think. But
Do you want to start over, shall we?
you want to start over?
We may as well.
Okay. I'm just looking at the time though.
Yeah. Okay. Let's keep going from where we are.
Okay. So for people who are jumping on, feel free to leave your questions and whatnot in your comments. We want to engage with you guys. We will post the full thing tomorrow. We're just going to continue where we left off. All right. Let's go.
All right. What do you want to dig into first?
So what we're going to talk about are some reasons to know if you feel like quitting your channel because you're growing, and you could benefit a lot by sticking with it and going through the process, or if it's just plain old time to quit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to dive into the reasons that you feel uncomfortable with your channel, you feel like quitting, and it's mainly because you're growing. And so let's start with YouTube can be painful when you are learning to be vulnerable.
Here, here.
Yeah.
That's the worst. This is like you could sum up my entire YouTube career with I hate to be vulnerable. Yeah. And I like people to always see me as like in control and doing just fine. And YouTube has really stretched that. I feel so uncomfortable all the time. And it's like a lot of times I've wanted to quit because I'm like, I shouldn't feel this bad all the time. Like I feel it hurts, you know, like physically it hurts sometimes to just keep showing up, even though you just feel exposed, you know, you're like,
God, that's the right word.
I'm an open wound in front of you guys. Like it's horrible. But to me, it's really has been a big deal for me in terms of learning how to express myself and learning how to allow people to see me, because I've been very closed off for my entire life. Yeah. Like that's a whole therapist visit. So we won't go there, but that's the way it is, you know?
Yeah. I would say I totally have had the same struggle with learning how to be okay with being vulnerable. I think that when I first started my channel, I can relate to feeling that pressure of feeling like I need to have it like together all the time. And even now, I still kind of like struggle with that, feeling like I need to have like the perfectly scripted video idea and it needs to flow from beginning to end. And sometimes like I feel like I don't want to do it because it's too much energy to like pretend to be something that you're not. I don't know if that makes sense. Or to feel like you have to craft yourself in a certain way. And so in order to like get out of that, the challenge becomes like just allowing yourself to show up as authentically as possible, you know, like not as possible, girls. I'm not about to be showing everything, but at least on the topic that you're talking about, at least presenting the most authentic, your authentic self whenever you're addressing that topic. Now, like I said, I ain't about to be telling y'all my business, but and so for me, learning to do that was really painful. And it was like when I was confronted with situations where I had to be vulnerable, those are times where I felt most like, what the crap am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I subjecting myself to this pain? Like, I'm surrounded by all these people that think I'm crazy for doing this. And here I am, just like, you know, putting myself out there to the world, talking about stuff that I don't feel the best about myself. And I don't know how to finish that sentence, but yeah. I feel the best about myself that I'm like a sucky housekeeper. And here I am just like telling everybody how I'm trying to work through it. And I felt like the most like about quitting. I felt the most like quitting my channel after posting something. And I think if you feel like you're struggling with being vulnerable, I don't think that for me, I'm glad that I didn't quit. And I think that it's something that you may want to consider sticking through because there comes growth in that. I just feel like if you're struggling with perfectionism, which is something that I constantly struggle with, beating yourself up for not feeling like you're reaching some certain standard or your life is not a certain way or you're not doing things the way they ought to be done, allowing yourself to be vulnerable is like this soothing gel that just allows you to be like, it is okay. Like we are all different. It is okay for me to be exactly who I am and to be growing. And sometimes I think we forget that, and allowing yourself to be okay with that tension for me has just helped me not only with my YouTube channel, but in other areas of my life that I'm also need to work on. Like the perfectionism thing and being okay with being vulnerable and being okay with not having everything together. And I don't know, I find a lot of relief kind of when I let those things go. And YouTube has definitely been the starting point for YouTube and Fly Lady have been the starting point in allowing me to experience that in other places.
Yeah.
What about you, Sarah? Do you have any tips for encouraging people to stick with it if they feel pain because they feel vulnerable?
Well, definitely, because I think for all of us, but maybe women in particular, I think that we are all on a journey of trying to be the same person in every room that we're in. You know, we all have kind of crafted a facade. You know, we have a little bit of armor on all the time. And that's helpful in that it's kept us safe in a lot of situations, but it's unhelpful because we can never just breathe and just be who we are in every situation. And to me, that's kind of like what vulnerability means. Like you're the same person in every situation that you're in. And maybe you don't like you were saying, tell everything that's going on, but you're still not protecting yourself. You're comfortable with people seeing you, flaws and all. So I think that if that's how you're feeling, if you can locate the source of your pain to the fact that it's difficult for you to show up on YouTube as your true self, keep pushing, because if you keep pushing and you keep showing up, you are going to get to the point where you feel much more able to allow yourself to be seen, which is very important. And I think that there is so much relief that comes along with that. Just even like the little bits of progress I've made, there's been a lot of relief in being able to speak something that is just true. It's not meant to like shield me in any way. It's just me. So yeah.
I feel like one thing that I want to make sure little Day Day knows is that for me, like, I don't know, it's like when I'm vulnerable, it is incredibly hard for me. It's harder for me to be vulnerable when I feel like I'm talking to like an audience of people and I have to be like pleasing to everyone. And so I feel like my journey has helped me kind of not look at everyone. When I choose to be vulnerable on my channel, it's because to me, like the visualization that I have is like I am reaching my hand out into, I'm going to say the darkness. I feel like that's more dramatic, but it's like you're reaching your hand out into the darkness because you know that there's somebody out there who's like struggling with something that you once struggled with. And it's like the only way to reach her and to like grab her hand and let her know that like I get it and I can't make promises to you, but let me just show you what's working for me. Let me show you how I've evolved to help bring you, bring you into a little less dark world. I can't say the light because I'm not in the light yet, but I'm just saying like, it's to me, I really try to make sure that my vulnerability is for a purpose. It's because I can't claim like, that I have like the highest self-esteem and that I'm just okay with everybody, flaws and all, but I do know that it's essential if I want to like connect with people that I feel like who are hurting in a specific area or who are looking for solutions in an area to like let them know that like I get it, I've been there, and like I can relate. And for me, the vulnerability helps build like trust and connection. And so I say stick with it, because if your goal is to help people, that I feel like you start to get to a point for me where you feel rewarded for sticking your hand out there, for being vulnerable, because then you will attract the right people to your channel, the people who you are meant for, instead of like attracting people who maybe you're not for that person, or maybe you're not going to be able to change or impact their life dynamically. But if you're like vulnerable and you're willing to like put your neck out there for the right person, they will be able to find you. It makes it a little easier for them to find you and connect with you. And so it's painful, but I think it's worth it if you feel like your mission is to help people and to change people and to just be like a force of good for people. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. And that force of good can be like anything. Like I really think that any way that you're choosing to approach YouTube, it can be in any category possible. But with every category, there has to be a mind to who you're talking to. I think you're right about that.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add before we move on to painful? YouTube is painful because you're growing.
Nope. I'm ready for number 2.
Number 2. Do you want to introduce it, or you want me to introduce it?
I will. It's painful when you are looking to YouTube and what you find on YouTube as a source of validation. So for me, I definitely think that is true. Like I said, I've come a long way, but I do look for validation from other people in many ways. Like I said, I'm working on this, but when you just sit there and you pour your heart out, you spend all of this time that could be doing a million other things. Like I spent 3 hours editing a video and now my house looks terrible and like I'm behind on all these other things. And then you put it out there and then like your friends show up and they're like, we love you. And that's awesome. And I absolutely love that. But sometimes I'm like, are my friends the only one who like my content?
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like that? You don't feel like that anymore, probably, but do you remember feeling like that?
I can relate, because it's like sometimes I feel like it's not even about whether your content is great or not. It's just sometimes it hasn't had a chance to like grow, and it hasn't had a chance to like for YouTube to figure out where to put you and how to suggest you appropriately and how to put you in this. Like sometimes it's a process for like YouTube to figure that out. And so it definitely certainly can feel like at the beginning, like it's just like 3 people keep coming to my video. They're so nice to me, but I know you're not here because you want to be here, or maybe you do want to be here, but maybe you feel sorry for me. That's why. Or maybe you're trying to do sub for sub. Like I know you're not, because this content is genuinely going to impact your life some way.
Right.
I think that it's just a process. It has no reflection on like whether you're doing a good job or not, like or whether the video is excellent quality or not. It's just, it takes time for YouTube to figure you out and for your channel and your platform to grow. And so I feel like for me, this YouTube has been an excellent exercise in learning to find validation in myself, because even for me, I feel like I feel pressure. Like if I know that my videos are getting like certain numbers and then I post one and it tanks, like I have to, that's hard. Like to me, that's harder than having like consistently, lower views and then having a spike and then it goes back down, like having up and then, I'm talking like this is a visual thing. I'm sorry, people listening to the podcast, but like to me, it's a lot of pressure. And sometimes I've had to get to the point where I'm just like, before I post this video, I have a pep talk with myself. Like no matter how this video performs, I know that my intentions were to help people. My intentions were to connect with people. And if people don't receive it, that has nothing to do with me because I did my part. I put out something into the universe that was supposed to be helpful to someone. And for me, that is growth. That is transformation. Because when I started, I definitely looked for external factors to tell me if I did a good job, if my video was good enough. And now I'm just like, it still tings, but I feel like I have, by sticking with it, I have developed tools to help me find that validation from inside. Like I read a book, I read a line in a book that I feel like has really helped me with that validation piece. And she was just saying, like, seeking the approval of others, like, it's just a way for you to give yourself permission to be okay with what you have done. But the reality is that validation never came from them. It came from yourself. And you were just looking for them to give you permission to release something that was always inside of you. And if you desire, like, you can skip the whole external validation part and just give yourself that satisfaction. Like, I showed up, I did what I was supposed to do. I did this, I had the right intentions. And you can, like, at that moment be like, I'm happy with this. And I don't know why in our society we train, like, I feel like there are goods to needing validation from other people, but I don't know why we train people to be so heavily dependent on validation, because it's so painful. Like, it makes it very painful for you to, like, live in your authentic truth and to be authentic to who you are when you can't accept yourself unless other people accept you. And so anyway, I'm just saying, if you feel like you're struggling with that, it is worth sticking with it, because over time you will learn how to process it in a way that's a little bit healthier and, like, being okay with what you've done, regardless of what other people have to say about it.
Right.
Yeah. So Sarah, what are your, I don't know if you shared this already. I know you shared your experience with it, but if somebody was wanting to quit because they were not getting the validation, like, do you have any, like, tips for them in terms of, like, why they should stick around and deal with that, like, how that can help them grow?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, I was thinking about it because I just, like, casually assumed that you didn't have, like, as much pressure for validation as you were talking. I realized that the reason you stick with it, if you are cognizant of the fact that you are really feeling good when people approve of your content in whatever way that means to you, or you feel bad when you're not getting the engagement that you want, that does mean that it is validation that you're seeking, and you have to deal with it now, because it's going to continue being in your face. Because if you have 1 million subscribers, you are going to have thousands of people trash talking you. And so now it's a matter of, like, do I deal with what I know my value is, or am I looking at these trolls and believing what they have to say about me? So I guess, and even outside of YouTube, it's always going to be something you're going to keep bumping up against. So you may as well get yourself accustomed to dealing with it. And to me, it's almost like an everyday going to the gym. Like, it's always going to be there. Just keep showing up and keep, like, working on that thing.
Oh yeah. I feel like you really, like, hit it in the head. Like, and I feel like most of these things that we're going to talk about, I feel like that's the theme. Like, if you're, especially when it comes to this growth thing, if you're struggling with these things on YouTube, there's a good chance that you're struggling with it in life. And YouTube is just a good way to become aware of it and to develop healthy tools. Spit when I said that. To get through it, because then you know how to use those tools when you go out into other areas of your life where you may be struggling with it. And so I think that was that's a solid point.
Thanks. All right, take her away with point 3.
YouTube can be painful because you're learning how to do something new. Sometimes all the time. Like, for me, I have, like, this new venture that I'm going through, and sometimes I'm like, I get so excited about it. Like, I know that this is something that I should be doing, because just the little bit that I know, the little bit that I've seen, the little bit that I've learned just gives me all the good juju and all the good vibes. But then like in my mind, it's supposed to be way easier than what it actually turns out to be. And I'll go ahead and tell you what what I'm trying to figure out how to do. I'm trying to learn how to like create this beautiful aesthetic digital planner from scratch. And so I'm just like, in my mind, like, this should be easy. This will go here. And I'm learning that it is so much more complicated, or either I don't know what I'm doing, or it's way deeper than what people are showing on the YouTube channel. It's way more involved. But I know that it feels good, like when I'm thinking about it, when I'm planning it, when I'm executing it. And so I think, to me, sometimes you feel like quitting new things because you realize how much energy it's actually going to take to learn how to do it. And sometimes you're like, is it worth this investment of energy? And so for me, I'm just like, if this thing excites you, if it fills you with good energy, you feel like you're doing something good. I'm like, that's the pain that comes from growing. That's the frustration that comes from growing. And it's very normal. And for me, I'm just like, that's one of those things that you just want to stick with, because on the other end, you're going to grow. And so I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's just, you have to hold the good and the bad together. Like if you're going to progress in anything, if you're going to try your hand at anything, you've got two options. And the first option I'm going to tell you is the option I've taken most of my life. I would work on something. I would have like all this excitement about the idea. I would have even more excitement as I researched it. I'd go get everything that I needed. And then I would realize as I'm doing it, it was so much harder than I anticipated it was going to be. And so I'd work on it and then I get frustrated and stop. Work on it, frustrated, stop. And then eventually just abandon it because, oh my gosh, it takes so much brain power and patience and like following directions, which is my least favorite thing to do. And YouTube has been like that in every way. Like I was so stinking excited to get Final Cut Pro. I could not stand it. And I got it and I was like, I am going to die. I hate this so much.
So relatable.
But now I made myself stick it out, and now I feel like I'm learning new things all the time. It feels so comfortable to me. But everything on my channel has been like that. Like I just did a new intro and I like downloaded this thing and I had to figure out how it worked. And it took like 3 hours of my life.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is if you don't quit and you keep going and you master that thing, like that gives you a sense of accomplishment. And like, I think it makes you rely on yourself, because if you start things and you quit every time it gets hard, that is who you become in your mind. You're like, I'm a quitter. I quit stuff when it's hard. That is who I am. And so that is the reason to me that if you're just tired of all the work that goes into it, all the new things that you're having to learn, stick with it, because you want to be reliable to yourself. And that's one quick way to do it.
Yeah.
Not quick way. It's a long, horrible way to do that.
The journey. Right. For me, like, thankfully, like, as we've mentioned before, like you are able to take so many of these growing opportunities and apply them to other areas of your life. And as I mentioned, I was starting my digital journaling journey, digital planner journey. And one thing that I've learned from YouTube is that sometimes I get overwhelmed with new projects because I feel like I should have been a master at this yesterday. And I put this pressure on myself to like do it all really, really fast and like to consume as much and figure it out as soon as possible. But now I know, it's a journey. And anytime I feel those feelings overwhelm me that I can't do this, I need to quit, that's a trigger for me to slow down, like really break this thing into chunks and stop trying to do it all in one day. We're going to just work on the title page today. And if I can get done with that, I have a small win. And creating small wins for yourself really, for me, just encourages me to like stick it out for the long haul. And like, instead of feeling frustrated about what I don't know, just having like small accomplishments, I don't know, boost my ego a little bit. So it's because of YouTube that I've learned how to slow things down and to just create small wins for myself, to keep going. And so that's for anybody who feels like they're struggling with being overwhelmed with all the stuff that needs to get done. If you struggle with being overwhelmed with learning about YouTube, there's a good chance that you struggle with being overwhelmed and lots of new ventures that you have. So if you love it and you're having fun with YouTube, this is a fun way to practice that skill and practice what you need to know and what you need to learn in order to be able to stick with something, so that not only will you stick with YouTube, but you'll stick with other things. So it's definitely an opportunity for growth.
Totally.
Yeah.
I hesitate to talk about the next one.
Okay.
This is like probably my biggest trigger.
Oh, this is good. I just looked at it. Okay, sorry.
You want to introduce her?
Okay, I will try. I feel like another reason that YouTube may feel painful, but it's really a sign that you're growing, is, wait, I feel like that sentence, I didn't start off right. A way that YouTube may feel painful, but it's really a sign that you're growing, is when you really start to realize that you control nothing. All the research, all the editing, all the work, all the networking, like you control nothing. Like, and sometimes that can be a really hard pill to swallow, especially for people like me, because I feel like I do a lot of research. Like sometimes before I even start any project, like I do not like to set myself up to be in a situation where I can feel like I'm going to fail at it. Sarah, I'm going to let you like dive into that a little more, but I do not like feeling the possibility that I can fail. And so half the time before I start anything, I need to see it from beginning to end. I need to map out all the steps. And YouTube and also some other things in my life have really illuminated the fact that, number one, I control nothing. Number two, the more you know, the more it starts to illuminate all that you don't know. It's a very scary like loop that you can get into. And it just really highlights the fact that some things you just have to be okay with being on the journey. Like you can't control it. You just have to be okay with going with the flow and just taking the steps day by day. And sometimes that might mean that you may not get the results that you were looking for as fast as you want them, but it's okay, because like there's a lot of things in life, the things that I feel like are worth striving for kind of requires you to have those skills of being okay with not being in control, being okay with being on the journey, being okay with going along on the process, and just rolling with the punches as they come.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Sarah?
I think that being in control is like the overactive ego, right? It's the only reason it acts up like it does and makes us feel so crazy when we try things that we don't know the outcome, is because it's just trying to keep us safe. It's our little minds just trying to make sure that we stay safe. But also, like, I think our personality types, which I've talked about quite a bit, but like we feel like we need to be good at something before we even start it. And that's something that I was reading this one thing about how like every adult is an artist at heart, but like time and age has programmed them to think that they can't start at 1. They have to be at 10 without any kind of practice. And it just robs us of like that kid-like curiosity about things and willingness to venture out when you don't know what's going to happen when you step your foot out. And I don't know, for me, it's been really a big thing that has helped me a lot, because when I first started YouTube, I researched how to start a YouTube channel for about a year before I started a YouTube channel. And everybody agreed that if you posted consistently and you posted like several times a week and you had your good lighting and you had your good camera, then you were going to be monetized in 1 year, and then it would snowball after that. And that is not what happened. And like, just as I went down the journey and I was realizing like, these things are not adding up, it was horrifying. And I just had to keep going like into the abyss as if I just couldn't see anything. And that's very, very hard. But the reason I think that you should continue your YouTube channel, if that's your issue, if you just don't like being out of control, is because being in control and insisting that everything in your life is just the certain way that you can understand, it makes you a very rigid person, actually. Mm-hmm. It makes you unforgiving to others. It makes you just inflexible. But if you can keep holding space for that discomfort that makes you feel like you don't know what the next step is and you can't predict what's going to happen here or there, then that's going to give you a lot of flexibility in your life and hopefully like unlock that childlike wonder that there are so many possibilities instead of like, just needing to know the outcome. What's out there is potentially so much better than what you had planned for.
Exactly.
If you had like your controlling way. So
yeah. I feel like there's a story that Sarah and I were talking about, and I wasn't sure if I was going to share it because I was like, this is going to be too lengthy. But I feel like little Day Day needs to hear this because she is me. And she is very much into seeing things from beginning to end before she can start. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I've come to the realization that need to feel so in control before you can start robs you of so much learning and understanding that you would get if you would just start. Mm-hmm. An example would be, I talk about my Fly Lady journey. For those of you who don't know, that's a cleaning system that has dramatically changed my life. And but I was explaining that whenever I started the system, I read the book. And this is not a book. I mean, if you flip through the pages, I guess you can kind of figure it out. But I read the book and I read it from beginning to end. And the way that it's set up, it's very much into take action right now. Like, don't wait until you get to the next chapter. Don't wait till you get to the next sentence. Here's your task. Go do that. And then let's talk about it tomorrow. And my initial plan was to read the whole book and create my little system and write everything out. And she, like the lady, Marla Seeley, is that how you say her name? Silly. Marla. She was so convincing, like with these baby steps, and she made them so simple. And she promised me I would just feel so great. And I just felt like, okay, like that's not a big deal. Let me go do it. And at the time I had visitors. I was certainly not planning to start any cleaning system because I was like, there's no way I can do it with everyone in the house. So I started and I like worked really hard on those couple of things that she gave us. And then it allowed me to progress into step 2. And then it allowed me to progress into step 3. And so because I started before I knew the whole program, not only did I know the step, but the piece that I feel like most people struggle with when they have this demand to know everything from beginning to end is it allowed me to see the consequences that radiated out from that step. For example, she said, make sure that there's no dishes in your sink. Don't do your dishes, just pull them out of your sink. I did not realize that pulling those dishes out of my sink would kickstart me to doing my dishes more often. If my dishes were done, I didn't realize she didn't put anywhere on there to wipe your counters, but that's what I naturally do. I didn't realize that the connection would be, I would want to wipe my counters down. If my counters are clean, like it looks weird to have a clean sink and a clean counter and food on the floor. So I would want to do this. I would naturally feel compelled to do the things that felt like dreadful before. And it's like, if I just would have sat there and looked at the whole system, I would not see the connection. I would not see the consequences that each step created. I would not see how everything interwove. And so to me, I'm like, that's just been a really valuable lesson that sometimes you just need to start. Like you learn so much and you fill in the gaps by doing. like explaining can only take you so far. And I just
Yeah.
remember when I started my journey, I read a lot of books about YouTube too. And it's so frustrating to me because the answers that I was looking for, literally, I wrote them down 2 years ago, but I couldn't understand it because I guess I was still on the quest to understand how to do everything from beginning to end, that I like overlooked really helpful information because I couldn't see the connection. And now that I've been doing it, I'll go back and look at stuff that I wrote like when I first started, and I was like, yeah, I'll just write it and move on. And now I have so much clarity around it. And I think, I don't know, it's just so cool, like to be in there. So for somebody who feels like they need to see things from beginning to end, this is also another area that I would challenge you to allow yourself to grow in, because not only is this going to help you with your YouTube channel, but for a lot of us, we want to figure out how to make money. We want to figure out how to create businesses. And that information is not readily out there. I guess there are courses that you can get, or there are, $5,000 conferences that you can join. But like, if you're trying to like figure out how to do it in a practical way, we know that it's possible because people are doing it every day, but it's not like so easily mapped out. Like, this is the way, and all you have to do is go step one, step two. That it's not that, it's never that simple. But it can be. Like, to me, I don't know. I'm starting to realize that maybe it is as simple. Maybe it's the same thing with my YouTube channel, that the answer that I'm looking for is like right in my face. But because I haven't taken the first step, I don't see how everything is like going to connect. I feel too scared to even do the first thing. And so I'm starting to, I don't know, like I said, YouTube will help you with some other things that you're struggling with. So
it's all interlocked.
I knew that story was going to be long. I'm sorry.
I think it's a good one. I think it's a good one to talk about.
Gosh. Yeah.
Okay. So are we ready to transfer to
when it's time to quit?
When it's just time to quit.
Yeah. Bad feelings. You feel pain because this is not for you. Let's do it.
Okay. So the first thing when we were talking about this, the first thing that came to my mind was when so we're all on a journey, right? And if right where I am way behind some people and I am way ahead of some people. So I am at a place in my life where the things that we've been talking about, like the not being in control and the being vulnerable, those are things that are helping me grow as a person. But probably 5 years ago, they would have just broken me down. I would have felt worse and worse about myself.
Yeah.
And it would have just been like a major depressive period. There would have been like a whole shame spiral that would have gone along with it. So I feel like it's not to say, oh, you need to like get to the place where you should be able to handle this. That's not it at all. You're on a journey and you're gonna get there.
Yeah.
But if doing YouTube ultimately makes you feel worse day in, day out, and there's not relief from that, and you don't feel like a sense that you're growing, when you look back at a month ago or 6 months ago or a year ago, and you feel just as bad, if not worse, this is your sign to quit. Like, this is not your time for YouTube. And you'll know when you can revisit it, but there's no shame in that. Like, that's just something that is okay to assess and do that for yourself, to pull back if it's just not your time.
I agree. Like, I definitely feel like I was in a space to begin having like the growth and evolution that I've felt myself kind of go through. But that's because like at this point, I guess I don't really talk. I guess I kind of hint about it a little bit, but like, I feel like I'm kind of like going through like a spiritual journey for myself. And by that, I mean, just like a self-development journey. And I was kind of open the door to that, and being open to that, and being open to like doing difficult things in the hopes that it will grow. And so in the hopes that I would grow. So I feel like when I started, I was in a space where like I kind of knew that was coming, and I was open to going through the process, even though I had no idea the way that it would actually happen and what my actual struggles, the struggles that would be revealed to me and how I would work. I had no idea about all that. But I think if I would have started my YouTube journey like maybe about 5 years ago as well, I don't think I would have been in that space. Like it would have been a situation where I just would have felt like it was beating me down, beating me down, beating me down. And without like at least like a book to read or a podcast to listen to or something to just help me remember that this is normal. It's growth. It's part of the process. If I just would have kind of been isolated from that side of myself, the self-development side of myself, I think that it would have been like a little bit of a toxic situation for me. I've been on other social media platforms where I've just kind of like had to check out because it was toxic for me. And like, I just kind of got over it. And I feel like YouTube can be that place as well. Like, just like Facebook, just like any other place that you feel like is toxic, YouTube can be that if you're not coming at it from a perspective. Well, no, if you're just not there yet, because like we said, we're not saying that you should be here. You should be at a point where you're willing to grow and self-develop. Like Sarah said, like you'll get there and it might just not be your time. Like you still may need to work on other things or become exposed to other things or go through other experiences before like emotionally you're in a place to be able to kind of deal with those pressures.
Right. Yeah. Or YouTube might not even be the avenue that grows you into that. You know, there's like, I think that God or the universe or whatever you want to say is constantly leading you into a place of just being more yourself, of being stronger, of like fine tuning those parts of you that are amazing and whittling away at those parts that are not serving you. And so like something, if it's not YouTube, something else is going to come.
Absolutely.
I just feel like Sam needs to hear that. It doesn't have to be one thing.
You know, and sometimes I forget, I'm talking to little Day Day, and I guess this is me not talking to her. Let me back out of that for just a second. Sarah, you're absolutely right. Like YouTube has been a huge piece of that for me. And also I mentioned my Fly Lady stuff, but like for people who are not the people I'm talking to, yeah, like that's just life. Like I feel like just the life in general, like it kind of knocks you around a little bit, like, and you learn and you grow. So YouTube is just one of the things that knocked me around quite a bit, and I learned in a group. So
still knocking me around.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, but another thing, like another cue to you that this is time to quit is just if there's no joy. Like I said at the top of the podcast that I'm in a space where I really feel not very much joy. I'm feeling like a lot of stress and I'm questioning everything, but still like as I was filming today and as I was editing today and while I'm talking to you guys right now, I feel happy. Like this is very fulfilling for me. But I know people, and I've seen them quit, who every single piece of this did not bring them joy. It made them unhappy. It was a drain. Everything dragged on them. And so that's a sign that either it's time to quit for good, or maybe it's just time to quit for right now.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like to me, I feel like being aware of your emotions, like is a good indicator that you're onto something or you're like getting closer to what it is that like you're supposed to be doing, like that thing that gives you joy. And so one thing that Sarah and I wanted to be sure to point out is like, sometimes it's okay to experiment with stuff. Like maybe you thought that YouTube would do that for you and it didn't, and that's okay. Like it's okay. There are so many more platforms out there. There are so many ways to, I guess people have been starting businesses before YouTube. I know a lot of moms on here were trying to figure out how to do the whole business thing. And so it's okay. I know one thing that I struggle with is like, once I kind of get going with something, I've invested in it. I've invested time in it. Cause you know, I'm a researcher. I got to figure out how to do this from point A to point B before I can even start. So before my first video has already gone up, there's been already a lot of investment. And sometimes and then people, you know, you start to attract supporters and subscribers. And sometimes it can feel like you don't want to look like a quitter, I guess. and you don't even like it anymore. That's one thing I struggle with. I don't like looking like a quitter. Like I just give up on stuff. And that's not a good reason to stick around. If like
life's too short.
Just acknowledge that, yeah, I experimented with this. I didn't like it. It's time to move on. Like there are so many things that I feel like in my personal life outside of YouTube that I've tried to experiment with, and people will try to hold you committed to that. Like, I used to think I was gonna be a seamstress. Like I had like a whole like area of my house devoted to sewing. And then I just decided like, yeah, girl, you didn't know.
No.
And so I've had people like years have gone by since I've sewn. Basically when I had my twins, I was like, I ain't doing no hobbies that won't one day make this money. And I don't like sewing for other people. I like sewing for myself and for my kids. And so I'm like, I can't make money off of this because I will get so peaked off. And so, but like people be trying to hold me to, I thought you was a seamstress. You need to sew that. No. So it's okay. Don't let like other people pressure you to feel like you have to commit to something just because you tried it. It's okay to experiment. At least it weeds out the stuff that you don't like. So it makes it easier, a little bit easier for you to figure out what you do like. And that's okay.
Exactly. I think that's a great point. And I don't know, just the older I get, the more I'm like, I am not the kind of person who's like, it all has to be fun. Like, I'm not doing it if it's not fun. I am so serious. It's like too serious all the time. But as I get older, I'm like, things should be fun. There should be an element of happiness that goes along with pretty much everything that you're doing, except for like homeschooling your kids. I don't know how to bring happiness to that situation.
Oh, girl. But all the moms who do that, kudos to y'all.
I know. Jesus. Year long. Y'all are amazing.
I'm on my last streak of patience, girl. I can't wait for these 4 days to be over.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes. So anyway, but you've got this one life. Like, it's important that you go ahead and experiment. If you're starting to feel really stuck and nothing makes you happy and this is just a drain, try something new. Just, maybe you want to sell essential oils.
Girl, open up a little Etsy shop.
Maybe you want to be a yoga teacher.
Okay.
There's a million things to do, basically. That's all we're trying to say.
So many options. Like I feel like I was about to talk about how I teach online on the side. Like if your goal is to make a little extra money, even like with my teaching thing, I've seen people go off and start their own business venture with the skills that they learned by working with the company. And so I'm like, there's opportunity. Like people was doing this before YouTube. Like maybe, YouTube is just not where it's at for you. And that's okay.
Yeah. YouTube might be a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Leanne said, same thing could go for when you decide it's time for a job change. Sometimes you just know it's time to move on to something else, whether it's a job, hobby, or interest. It doesn't have to be forever. Yes. I'm glad that you said that because like I was raised as I was being raised. It was with an idea that you would go to college and you would get a job and that would be your job forever. And then my dad got laid off from a job that he had committed his whole entire life to and just blood, sweat, and tears. And he was like a 50-year-old man. He still had like a lot of experience. And that was just it. And just for me, I learned the lesson early that there isn't one thing for most people. Like you have seasons of life where you do this and it works for your life. And then that season ends and then you move this other way. So
yeah.
Yep.
And it seems like, kind of like things can like build off of each other. Like if you allow that or create the space for that, like maybe, kind of like that was your season, but we talked about so many ways that for some people, YouTube can create opportunities for growth. And maybe you needed to work through some of that stuff so that you can be successful on the next thing. And so, yeah, like that can totally be a positive.
Yep.
For why it's time to chunk deuces.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So painful because it's not for you. One thing that we were talking about, or we think is important to note, is that I think a lot of moms start their YouTube channel because they feel like they have some sense of like purpose. Maybe they have a purpose they want to fulfill. Maybe they have a skill that they want to teach, or maybe they want to, show their lifestyle for people who are interested. And we just want to point out that, kind of like what we were mentioning before, like YouTube is just a tool. There are so many ways that you can fulfill your purpose without starting a YouTube channel. If you're not, filling the creation process for YouTube, there's podcasting. And girl, you ain't even got to wear real clothes.
I know.
Podcast.
I have my comfy pants on.
I have like this pajama dress under this thing. Like, I'm not playing with y'all today. Like, maybe you're a writer. Maybe you should start a vlog. Maybe, I don't know, you like 1 minute, you're hilarious and you can do these very fun short minute TikTok clips. Maybe you need to be exploring TikTok. I'm just saying, like, there's like 100 different ways to talk about your topic, and lots of different ways to connect with the people that you want to connect with. And so maybe YouTube is not it. And that is okay if this is not the correct tool. People are still making money and from other avenues. So yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. What do you think, Sarah?
I agree. I think that there's, like, I tried before this, I tried an Etsy shop because I really like doing artsy things. And for me, that was just not the avenue. That caused so much more stress than happiness. And I second guessed like nowhere near like I do now. Like, I feel a lot of happiness when I make YouTube videos, even though there's stress that goes along with it and like fear and stuff, but it still lives with this place of like possibility and happiness. And it was not like that before. Yeah. And I've always known that there was something that I was supposed to do. And YouTube may not be the end of that. I doubt it is. Like, I think we all have multiple things that we're meant to do. So I guess just staying open to it and like realizing that this is not your only way of accomplishing what you need to accomplish on this earth,
And like when you said that, like it just like clicked to me that maybe as we're talking about this, like maybe YouTube is not end goal for me, but Lord knows that wherever I'm going, I'm taking these skill sets and I'm taking this growth with me. So yeah, I think it will definitely help me be successful wherever my end game is. But for now, YouTube is where it's at, and I'm just gonna be open to this season and enjoy it, and keep working through the things I know I need to work on. So
that's right.
Yep.
That's all you can do.
Yay! I feel like we kind of ended this on a kind of a negative note, but a good note at the same time. Like giving people, because sometimes, as I mentioned earlier about validation and feeling like you have to, other people have to be happy with you before you can be happy with yourself. And you don't have to live like that. You can actually, that sense of love was always inside and you get to choose to tap into it, whether people want to support you or not. And I feel like sometimes it's the same thing with permission. Like people, maybe there are people who feel like they want to leave and they don't have permission to go because of some of those limiting thoughts that we talked about. I'm feeling like you have to stick with it, even though, good and well, it's not for you. And so hopefully you feel like you have permission to make your exit if you need to. Right. And, and if you think that YouTube is for you and you may be struggling because of some areas that you're growing, I hope that just having this conversation, which I don't think I've ever come across a video like this, just illuminates some things that you might want to start thinking about and just bringing that awareness. Because I think somebody said the other day, I don't know if it's true, but it resonated with me. Like awareness is like 90% of the battle. Like being aware that this is what's happening so that then you can choose how you want to respond to it. And sometimes when you're not aware, it can kind of feel like you're just getting beat up and just getting punched left and right, and you're in the dark. You don't know where the swings are coming from. So we hope that maybe you guys can resonate with some of the stories that we told, and I don't know, and it'll help you in the areas that you're currently growing in and working through right now.
Yep. And it's solidarity. We're here with you. You're not the only person who is
oh God, no.
struggling along.
Yeah. We in the struggle boat with you, girl.
Yes.
We gonna struggle boat together.
Yes. Leanne said, oops, am I supposed to wear real clothes when filming YouTube? We rarely do, to be honest. I'm just extra comfy today. Yeah. I have mascara all under my eyes because I was like in the pool right before this.
Oh, yes. Pool time.
Well, my oldest daughter was like, will you come swimming with me? And I'm like, I have to film a podcast in an hour. And she was like, please. So I just jumped in.
Yay. I wish one day, you know, I'm like trying to convince I'm like, Sarah has a pool and it's helping her with her YouTube channel. I need one. And for a day he said yes. And then like the next day he was like, no. I'm like, I need to be creative. Like I need relaxation.
Yeah.
Like, no, so one day I'm going to try again next
one day. Yes. But we're so happy y'all are here. We thank you so much for tuning in and just being with us on this journey. We're just going along, and we always want to just be able to really talk about what the heck is happening, because it is not all rainbows. And I think the more we can talk about it, the more we just realize like we are a community, we can do this together. So thank you for being here.
I'm going to just throw this in there. I know we're trying to wrap up, but I feel like Sarah, like our friendship has helped me out like so tremendously with dealing with stuff like this, because I think for a long time I thought that I was like alone and I thought that I was struggling. And so to me, just to like hear somebody else like vocalize what I'm going through, to me, that was, I feel like that's kind of what helped me stay around, is because it just really illuminated the fact that I am not alone, that these feelings are normal. And like I knew, like I said, I was open up to growth, but just like having somebody to talk to about that, it's been really like, I'm trying to think of the word. It's been really powerful to me, and I'm so happy that we could come together and maybe connect with other people the same way that I felt like our connection has helped me kind of stick with difficult times as I've been on my own growth process. Yeah. So hopefully we can be that for other people. And so,
that is my greatest hope too.
Yeah.
Do we have a call to action today?
I don't have one. Oh no. What's one thing now that they know what we've talked about? What is one small tiny action that they should do with this information?
I think you should spend 5 minutes alone and just think about, not even think. I think you should go into your dark, dark closet. This works for me. Maybe this is just a weird thing. It's the only place I could be alone. But I go into my closet sometimes and I just stop thinking. It's like, you can call it meditation or whatever. It's where you turn your brain off and you're just like feeling how you feel. That to me is maybe my call to action for y'all. If you're feeling distressed about YouTube and you just are not really able to pinpoint what is going on, just spend 5 minutes where you're not thinking, you're just feeling, you know? See what comes to the surface for you.
Yeah. I think my call to action would be, I would tell little Day to just be okay with feeling tension. Like if you feel like YouTube is what you want to do and you know that you're growing and it's hard, learn to be okay with tension. The real pain comes from having that tension and then beating yourself up because you have that tension. And so for me, sometimes what I do when I'm feeling really bad, or I know that there's a lot of like emotional tension because maybe I just did something vulnerable on my channel, maybe I'm fighting perfectionism, I feel like I should have done something better, or I'm like concerned about something I just said, is that sometimes I just treat it like I'm not feeling well, like I'm sick today. Like, you know, and most people, you never beat some people do, But for the most part, most people don't walk around being like, I'm sick and I'm mad at myself for being sick. And I'm just going to like, why do I have to be sick? Just be like, today is a low energy day for me. And that is okay. Like I feel tension. I'm going to just take it easy on myself today. I'm just going to give myself some chicken soup for the soul. Maybe I'm going to journal. Maybe I'm going to meditate. I feel tension and I don't have to run away from it. And it is okay. Like if I need to cry about it, I'm going to learn how to be in this tension and not make it worse by running away from it. So that's what I would tell my little day is just practice being okay with tension and being kind to yourself when you feel that. And just being still until it relieves itself and then decide what you want to do from there.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So true. Okay, well, I think we have to wrap it up.
Oh God, I gotta go to bed.
This was a long one, but as you can tell, it definitely hits both of us pretty hard. So
it gets passionate.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we will talk to you next week.
See ya.
Bye, Leanne. Thank you so much for being here and commenting. See y'all later.
Bye. Oh, wait.